Hey, I'm Mark Edward Lewis, and welcome to Cinema Sound B. Today we're going to be talking about how to do the basic grade for Dialog male voice. Well, what's a basic grade for Dialog? Well, we know what a basic grade is for color timing, and that is where you take the blacks and the whites and you make them the right contrast, the color, the right temperature, and the right amount of color, and anything else that you need to make a basic flat line grade so that from there you can do a creative, awesome thing and not have to worry about the basics. Well, we do the same thing with Dialog on every actor in every scene. We want to make sure that there aren't any weird frequencies in their dialogue. This isn't cleanup. This is what happens after that, where we go in and we find frequencies that are going to conflict with our ability to bring the music up to the level that we want, or the sound effects to the right place. And just like we talk about on Cinema Sound and throughout the blog and the forum about the audio cube, how every sound has to have its individual space, doing a basic grade allows us maximum flexibility in order to do that, bringing the music up and having the dialogue be as enunciated and clear so that the story can be told as possible without any of that conflict happening. Okay, so we're going to jump into this with Adobe Audition, and we're going to do this with using plugins from our friends at Waves Audio, where they make a really special kind of EQ that, in my opinion, is perfectly tailored just for the Dialog basic grade. All right, so we're here in Adobe Audition. Let's take a look at how to do basic grading on Dialog. We have a male example and a female example. Let's start with the male example. Here's what it sounds like.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination.
Which, it sounds a little low, but the first thing is that it sounds a little noisy, right? So the first thing we want to do is kind of fix that before we deal with basic grade. And although Audition has a really good denoising thing built in, let's take a look at the Waves VST3 Restoration Waves NS1, a real simple plugin to use. Take a listen here.
Taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer.
And even that creates a really nice, super nice result that cleans things up really nicely. Super cool. And that's just been burned in. We'll go back. And now let's do one other thing, actually. Let's select all and make this gain. Oh, where am I at here? There it is. Normalize to -3 dB. And I like to normalize to -3 just in case I have other processing that I need to do. At least I've got some headroom there and I'm not going to push any further audio renders or plugins over. I'll go like this and nice and strong. We'll go back and it looks much nicer now, doesn't it?
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination.
Okay, so what I'm going to do now that we have that handled is make that basic grade. And the basic grade removes frequencies that otherwise could cause us difficulty in mixing the dialogue with things like ambiances, music especially. And that will removing these frequencies that are weird, will keep us from having to pull the fader down and allow us to bring other things up to help with the overall immersion and emotional effect of your piece. So I'm going to instantiate VST3, EQ, Waves, Q10 stereo, because this is a stereo track. At least the channel is stereo, even though this is mono. All right, so what have we got here? I got 10 bands that I can make into anything that I want. Now you can use any EQ that you want. It's just what I like about the Waves Q10 is that it has 10 bands. I don't have to keep instantiating more and more EQs and taking up slots. I can just use one and it pretty much does it all for me. I want to do first a high pass filter. He's got a pretty low voice, but we do want to cut everything off that's below 100 hertz. I'm going to turn all these bands on because there's nothing underneath 100 hertz that we really want to hear out of his voice right now.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was
just kind of cleans up some of those lows. And if you're listening on computer speakers or iPhone headphones, you're probably not noticing any difference, but you will in a second. Now, once we've done all this, now it's time for us to listen. And we're going to turn up each band. Let me zoom in here. We're going to turn up each band quite a bit, 15 to 20 decibels, making sure that they're in a bell like this. We're going to start at his fundamental frequency, which on the male voice is about 100 hertz, and in the female voice is around 150. We're going to make it very narrow. And we're going to listen for singing as we sweep up the frequency spectrum up to about 5,000 hertz. Now, what does singing mean? Well, let me show you. I'm just going to play this and do a little sweeping, and you can see what I'm talking about.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks.
So you can kind of hear that. And if you'll notice in there, there were certain frequencies that woo, kind of sang out a little bit. And that's what we're looking for. Those are the mean frequencies that may not actually be louder, although most of the time it is. They likely are just louder to your brain and your hearing mechanism. And those are the ones that we want to reduce so that we can get a better mix. So we're going to start at his fundamental, as I said, at 100 hertz.
But you're taking unnecessary.
And start sweeping. Now, we're going to hear that singing down there. That's his fundamental frequency. We want to leave the fundamental alone. But as we move up, we want to eradicate or lessen anything else.
You're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That's
definitely singing.
Was insubordination.
We wiggle around to see if there's one slightly louder anywhere in the near vicinity.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks.
And then what happens is once we find something, we widen it a little bit and we reduce it 5 to 10 dB.
But you're taking unnecessary.
And then we carry on at the next place, boosting 20 decibels. Oh, well, 18, sorry.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That
there's a couple
destroyer was
right in here, so that's just fine. We'll widen everything up a bit, and we'll reduce that, maybe not quite 10 dB because it's so close. And then we will pick up the mantle on the next place. Here we go.
You're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks.
There's another one right there.
The destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination.
You can really hear it when we widen up.
Unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was...
Now this whole area is kind of nasty, so we'll want to widen this up quite a bit more. A little bit there, and definitely reduce it 10 dB.
But you're taking unnecessary risks.
And then again, we'll continue on at maybe 525 hertz. And we just continue this way.
Taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the...
We'll remember 750 in case we have a band. That's a pseudo bad one, but we'll move on. There's worse ones to be had, I promise.
You're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary...
And now from about 1,000 hertz up, it's all going to sound like it's singing because of the nature of those frequencies. But you want to listen for the ones that are really sharp, that really sing out strongly. 1,000. Here's 18 dB.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination.
And then we continue on to the next one. We'll call this 1,400 hertz at 18 decibels.
You're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination.
So that one's really close to this one. So what we'll do is raise this up a little bit higher and widen it out a little bit more to cover it. And we'll continue on with this band.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination.
Right
but
there.
You're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But
And continuing on, 95, 3500, 18.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks.
And the last band.
That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the
And then once you get to 5,000 hertz, it kind of doesn't matter that much. It's just all sibilance up there anyway. Let's go back and check a couple of places. That one place at 750, I think it was.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary...
Might be 700. That versus there was one right in here.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking...
I'm going to take this one. It is stronger than that other one that was there, and we will only reduce it a little bit. So now...
You're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination. But you're taking unnecessary...
And if we turn it off...
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination.
And on?
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was...
And because we've reduced this quite a bit, we need to compensate for it by adding probably about 3 dB to both sides.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was insubordination.
Off.
But you're taking unnecessary risks. That stunt in the destroyer was...
It seems flatter, right? And with this on, excuse me, you're getting a little bass boost. That's this right here. But I'm happy to have some bass boost in there because I can always turn that down when we're doing the actual mixing and contouring. I've also got some nice high frequencies that are happening up here. But it's this middle weirdness that happens that I really don't want infecting my mix because there's, excuse me, so much energy that happens there from music, sound effects, ambiances, Foley. I don't want dialogue stepping on all of it. At the same time, I don't want to have to pull down those other things. I want to have them up as strongly as I dare while the story is being told by the dialogue, and doing this mix really helps. This may seem like a lot of work, and in the beginning it is. It's going to take you a little while to get used to it. But most professionals in the field don't do basic grades anymore. What? I know, we don't. We don't have to. We can hear it and go, oh, I know what to take out. And we do it immediately. But consider this great training for you to get your chops up on what to pull in and out of those EQ'd male voices to get that beautiful, flat, easy, basic grade in your dialogue. And then after 20 or 30 tries at this, you're going to get fast. And you're going to have 20 or 30 presets that you can just drop in and have a basic starting point for your basic grade. If you have any questions, please jump on the cinemasound.com blog or forum and drop us questions and examples, and we'll do our best to answer those questions and get you up and running as fast as possible. Until then, we'll see you in post.